Hey listeners, if you find value in this podcast and would like to support this project, please consider signing up on Patreon, where you can support the show on a monthly basis in exchange for some extra content and behind-the-scenes updates. Just check out the link in the description or go to patreon.com/Liveaboard Sailing Podcast. I'd love to see you there, and right now there's a little extra perk for new Patreons if you sign up before the end of May. Coming up next on the Liveaboard Sailing Podcast.
Our engine in particular wasn't very environmentally friendly, that's for sure. It excelled actually at turning money into smoke and noise. That was about it.
Yeah, I think it's as well, like, we want to travel around the world, and to be able to do that on a sailing boat is obviously much better than flying environmentally. It's like, well, how else can we improve? Be able to travel and see these beautiful places with minimal impact, just being a little bit more conscious.
Welcome to the podcast. I am your host, Annika. On the Liveaboard Sailing Podcast, I chat with awesome people who live, work, and travel on their sailboats. My guests share inspiring stories and real-life advice about the lifestyle so that you and I can be better prepared for our sailing adventures. This week, we talk all about transitions. More specifically, transitioning to the liveaboard lifestyle, transitioning to an electric boat, and finally, transitioning to off-grid life on a sailboat. My guests are George and Sinead from Electric Vagabonds, who live on their sailboat in the UK. This couple is chasing the opportunity to travel the world fossil fuel free, and I asked them about their decision to go electric and what their experience has been so far. We also talk about working remotely from a sailboat and being off-grid in England, where relying on solar power is sometimes a bit of a challenge. Now here we go with George and Sinead. How did you get started with the liveaboard life in the UK? Like, talk me through your story. How did you decide to become liveaboard sailors?
Well, it was George who was always the sailor. So we've been together like 9 years. When we first got together, I made it very apparent, all I want to do is travel the world. And George's like, cool, I want to sail the world. And I was like, well, all right, that kind of works. Don't know anything about sailing, never been on a boat at that point. But it was always like something that we had in mind, wasn't it? Like, we were always going to live on a boat and we were always going to travel the world. We didn't know when it would happen because we were absolutely skint at that time. So it definitely wasn't straight away.
So broke.
Yeah. But yeah, that's just, we've always just wanted to travel the world, and then see with sailing. Yeah. It means that you never have to pack as well. I hate packing and carrying a bag about. And there's always things you forget. So for me, it's great because I can never leave my toothbrush somewhere.
No, I love that because, I also love traveling, but it is such a hassle to, choose your hotels every time. Because, of course, if you do like longer term travel for like a month or two, there's a lot of hotel or hostel bookings or all these little details. And on an idea level, traveling on your own sailboat just feels like, and it sounds like, the perfect solution, which I'm yet to try, but people keep telling me it's great.
It's nothing quite like it, like the sense of freedom that you have with it. Like, you can go anywhere. The only thing that you're restricted by is tides and winds, really, and depth.
So how long have you been liveaboards now?
We've been living on board for 2.5 years.
Yeah, about that.
Is it?
I think so, yeah. Yeah,
About
2.5 years.
We've had the boat 3 years-ish, so we've lived on her for most of the time we've had her.
Right, so you started off by fixing it up a little bit. So what kind of boat is it? What's the size of it and the brand and
So
all that?
it's 36 feet, and she's an Oyster Mariner 35, and she's a ketch, which is it's a good size, I think, for us. And the reason we bought her is because she's so voluminous inside. She's got a big aft cabin with a walk-around double in it, and it's a bit of an odd design. It's not a usual thing you see on the market now, I don't think, but we really like her.
Yeah, we didn't, when we first viewed her, we weren't actually intending to, we weren't serious about buying her. There was one that was more in our price range in Gibraltar. And we're like, well, instead of flying all the way out to Gibraltar for something that could be something we don't like, we're like, let's go and see the slightly more expensive one and just see if we like it. And we stepped on board and we're like, oh, damn it, so nice. This is our boat. We have to make it happen.
Yeah, pretty much, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Fell in love with it instantly.
And how do you find the size 35, 36 feet as a liveaboard? And a full disclosure, I'm yet to be on a 35-foot boat. So I've only been on like 40 or 42. And I'm trying to picture, like, financially speaking, a 36-foot boat would be a great option. But how do you find that as a full-time liveaboard? You know, you're working and doing everything. Do you find it is an okay size?
To be honest with you, when we first started looking, we were looking at 40 foot, 42, 45. We didn't really consider anything less than that, but she's just such a well-designed boat. She's got so much space in her. And I think it's the perfect size for us. And like you said, it's in that under 36 foot. So financially, if you need to go into a marina, it's not extortionate. It's kind of like that nice,
much easier to handle as well.
100%.
When we're manoeuvring her, just as a couple and things like that. I mean, we can do that. You can actually do most things on board single-handed, which is handy. I don't think you'd be able to say the same for most of boats over 40 feet. And I think she's probably the only 35-foot boat I could live on, to be honest with you.
I agree. Same.
I mean, we could live on a much smaller boat. You know, we could. Now, once you've got the space, I think you'd miss it, you know? And I think a lot of people that live on 45-footers would find it maybe difficult downsizing. I don't know.
Although we've had a few friends who've got bigger boats than us come on board, and they're just amazed at the amount of space that we have.
For a 35-footer?
For a 35-footer.
Yeah, that's it.
They were like, I could live on this. And they're used to a 45-foot. But yeah, she's a beamy, big, wide girl.
She's not a fast boat. No. Definitely not a fast boat.
We get to 5 knots and we're like, yeah, we're smashing it.
Yeah, fair enough. I suppose the design does make a big difference, of course. And I don't think there are a lot of oyster boats here in where I am on the east coast of North America. At least I haven't seen many of them pop up on Yacht World, but I know there are more maybe popular in the UK or in Europe in general. But just going back to, as you were thinking of, you know, buying a boat and then eventually traveling the world and all that, how long were you thinking and planning for the process of buying a boat? Or like, how long did it actually take you to find that boat?
Oh, we looked at like 30 boats before.
I mean, we were, even when we had absolutely no money, we'd just go on Boat Shed and just have a little browse. We'd be like, okay, just to inspire us to keep working, keep going towards that dream. I think we seriously started thinking about it when we came back from doing our season. So we spent 3 summers in the south of France teaching dinghy sailing on a camp, and it was awesome. It was definitely a really fun way to spend 9 months of your year, but unfortunately there's not much money in it. So when we were thinking about, we want a boat now to start like doing our own adventures, we came back to the UK to play it real life for a little bit.
Yeah, we had to save money, and there was, you know, we could save a bit of money working as water sports instructors doing the season lifestyle, but it wasn't really enough. So we were planning for a long time, but we actually only took 2 years? Yeah. Would you say?
18 months, I think. Once
we moved back to the UK, I guess proper jobs, got decent jobs, which actually was, you know, hard work, but sort of paid off. 2 years we had the boat, but we looked at many boats before this one.
Lots of boats. We actually put on an offer in a different boat, didn't we?
Yeah,
beforehand.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Our idea of a date for quite a long time was booking a viewing of a boat, going and seeing it, and then going to the pub after, having a pint and chips, talking about the boat, and it was quite good fun, wasn't it?
We'd line up 2 or 3 boats in a day, wouldn't we? If we were going to a particular yard, even if we weren't seriously considering that style, it's just really good when you're looking for a boat to look around at all the different varieties, so you can pick out, actually, I like that, I don't like that, because it's such an investment. We wanted to buy once and buy right, and really love the boat that we have and sort of have it as like the boat. So we were quite conscious on what we wanted, what we don't want. And obviously there's always compromise when you buy a boat, but this one was minimal compromises.
Yeah, that sounds so good. I completely agree on that. That is a great idea of a date. Just go look at boats and then go have a little beer and have a chat about that. And I really look forward to doing that as soon as the snow melts enough that I can actually drive somewhere somewhat safely. Because, of course, I'm not on the ocean, so I'll have to drive somewhere. But I'm really looking forward to that. I already looked at a few boats like on the East Coast US or in the Great Lakes. Like, oh, well, if these boats are still there, we could go do a little weekend road trip and and do all that. So that's good fun. But yeah, 18 months or a couple of years, that's a good amount of time, and to get to see a few different boats and know what you like and don't like. So that's good to hear. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is that your boat is electric. So talk to me about that. Was it electric when you bought it? You mentioned that you had it for 3 years, but you lived on it 2.5. So is that 6-month time period the transition to electric, or how does that look like?
She was diesel when we bought her, needed a lot of work. So that 6-month period, she was out on the hard in Hayling Island near Portsmouth. And we did lots of work on her, but that wasn't when the electric conversion took place. That was just...
We spoke about it.
Oh, we did speak about it,
just
yeah.
Have the money to do it.
I wanted to make an electric boat since we've been thinking of having a boat, we've watched Sailing Uma and what they've been able to do with it in the various versions of electric propulsion that they've had as well. They started from square one with a forklift motor, I think it was, or something, wasn't it? So they were really inspiring. Lots of other people have done it since as well. But yeah, the electric conversion actually took place for us when we were looking at rebuilding the engine. So all the work we did when we first bought the boat was just basics, just to get it back onto the water and get it into a state that we could safely sail it. And the engine was...
It's all right.
It was all right, wasn't it?
Limped on.
Yeah, we could have rebuilt it, and I reckon it would have done another 40 years, Solid engines. It was an old Perkins 4108. They're brilliant, but it was really noisy. Leaked oil so badly. Like, you fix an oil leak and another one would appear the next day. It was horrific.
I can remember the amount of times that we'd be like preparing to go off for a lovely little day sail, perfect weather, sunny in the UK. You got to make those moments, haven't you? Count. And like, we got the boat already, then you turn on the engine and it's just like, oh no, wait, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, it wasn't the most reliable thing. It would have been if we rebuilt it, but the whole engine bay was knackered. The state of the electrics was appalling. And we also had a diesel bug in our built-in diesel tank. So the diesel tank's laminated into the bottom of the boat. So it's not like we can replace the tank. We'd have to clean it. But all things that are possible and that we considered. But by the time we were looking at refurbishing the fuel system, the entire engine bay, most of the electrics, we looked at the cost of that. We added it up. It was going to be, 13 grand, I think?
No, so it was going to be about 9 grand to get it all refurbished and do it ourselves. But then we had to take into account of like George dedicating time to do it, because he's an engineer, so he would be able to do it all himself. But it's then, if you're not working and doing that, it's cost benefit analysis all the time. So then we're in the realms of looking at a new engine. And if we're doing a new engine, obviously all the fuel systems, like you said, everything needs to be replaced.
We couldn't afford to pay someone to do the work for us. And if I do it myself, I take time off work to do it. So I'm not earning money. So it all sort of added up, really.
And then we tallied up. I'm a fan of a good spreadsheet. So I tallied up the costs of everything. And also we were like, well, whilst we're exploring all options, let's look at electric conversions and see how much that would actually cost and what that looks like. It's only going to cost us $2 grand more.
At first, yeah. It was actually a bit more than that in the end, but that was the motivation behind it, because the cost to convert was similar and it was much easier, I think, than rebuilding an engine. So that was what sort of led us to do it.
Yeah, and environmentally, it's the future.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree on that, especially with all the electric vehicles as well becoming so popular these days. But what was your driver? Why did you want an electric boat apart from the cost benefit system? I gather from your Instagram that you're rather environmentally aware. Can you talk a little bit about that, about your, call it a philosophy or whatever, in terms of sustainability and all that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, we are very, very much environmentally minded. Being electric has loads of benefits, but that was a big driving force behind it, to be honest with you. And with the old engine, the amount of fuel leaks and oil leaks it had, it was just a right pain in the arse to dispose of all of that properly and responsibly, really. We were always pumping out the bilges into buckets, carrying them to the oil disposal place in the marina, and then it's got like water in it, so you can't put it in there. Like, what do you do with that stuff? Yeah, our engine in particular wasn't very environmentally friendly, that's for sure. It excelled actually at turning money into smoke and noise. That was about it.
Yeah, I think it's as well, like, we want to travel around the world, and to be able to do that on a sailing boat is obviously much better than flying environmentally. It's like, well, how else can we improve and just be able to travel and see these beautiful places with minimal impact? just being a little bit more conscious. And it's amazing as well. Like we were sailing to the Scillies last year, and it was pretty light wind. We're coming back from the Scillies, and a pod of dolphins were like alongside us, which is really cool. And we turned the motor on, and they went from the bow of the boat right to the stern, and they were looking at like they just didn't really understand what was going on, because obviously it doesn't make any noise really.
Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? I mean, we've had dolphins follow us before and stuff, but the response was very much different to when we were diesel. It was really interesting to see. I don't know whether they noticed the difference or whether they were just used to hearing an engine, or it was coincidence. But yeah, it was really interesting to watch.
Oh, that's really cool. So in terms of the noise, is it actually really just silent? Because I'm picturing, I've seen dinghies that have an electric motor, and it's kind of a higher pitch hum or whatever. Is that similar, or is it actually just kind of non-existent because it's hiding away somewhere?
On this one, because it's still shaft drive, we still get the noise of the shaft and the cutlass bearing. So there's a little bit of a rumble from the shaft. The motor itself is silent. It's direct drive, so there's no gears. So you don't get any whining from gears or anything like that. There's a little bit of noise from the prop. And that's the thing as well. Like, we would never be able to hear that with a diesel engine. So the noise that we can hear now, well, the first time we turned the motor on, we sort of thought, is that normal? Like, does shafts make that noise? Is there something wrong with our cutlass bearing? I don't know, because we've never heard it before, because the engine's always on. So that was interesting. And if you have a different design, there's a lot of electric sail drives out there. They're a bit noisier because you have the gears in the bottom. So you get more gear noise. Again, you wouldn't hear that if it was a diesel engine. So they do make different sounds.
It's much more pleasant when you're down below and motoring. You can just have conversation with each other.
Oh yeah, there's no way we'd be able to talk like this now with the engine on. Yeah, before.
But you must have pretty good solar setup as well. So what do you have for that? And how does that work in the UK? Because I know I lived in Scotland. I know you're in England, but still, how does that work?
Yeah, it's not the best place to be solar powered, I don't think. But if it works here, I think it's probably going to work anywhere. We've got 2 bifacial LG panels over the cockpit. So we've got a center cockpit boat, and we've made kind of like a solar bimini, I guess, which was kind of cool because we were looking at having a cockpit cover anyway, weren't we? So 2 birds, 1 stone.
Less canvas work.
Yeah, they're 415 watts each, but because they're bifacial, they can actually generate, I think, up to 520, maybe. I don't know. It was a bit more, isn't it?
550.
So yeah, in theory, there's a kilowatt of solar there, but we've only seen it go as high as 900 and something watts in the summer. And in the winter, yeah, it's not great. Like, we are completely off grid from February until about November, and we can generally survive like that. But in the winter, we have to be supplemented by shore power. At the moment in the UK, I think if we're somewhere sunnier, we'd be able to do it all year, probably.
We have the wind turbine as well, 400 watt, 48 volt wind turbine, which I absolutely love. I know it's mixed opinions about turbines, but it's amazing. I love it because when it's not sunny in the UK, pretty much it's cloudy and windy. So it does kind of... It
does fill the gaps nicely, doesn't it?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm picturing like West Coast Canada, which is also a little bit similar to the UK weather-wise. Like it's not snowy, it's dreary, it rains a lot, but it's also windy. So that's an interesting piece of equipment to mention as well. But obviously, electric is still fairly new in the sailing world. And there are people who say that the technology is, not quite there yet, or maybe it's not as reliable as a modern diesel engine. So what are your thoughts on that based on your experience so far in the UK?
Yeah, I'd say it's not comparable to a diesel engine. It never will be. Well, that's not strictly true. It might be one day, but right now it's not comparable. In range specifically, you're never going to get the range that you have with a diesel engine unless you have some sort of diesel generator or something on board, which lots of people do, and then they have the choice whether to use diesel or solar. Maybe if they are on a stricter timeline, they can just start their generator and get home. Whereas for us, we sort of like pushing it a bit and seeing how far we can get without diesel. It's not for everyone, but I'd say that was its only shortfall, really. I think that's the only way it's not as good as diesel is in range. I think in every other way it's superior, to be honest with you.
I think it's a change of mentality as well. Like, I think if you're on a schedule and you want to go from A to B and you have to be back for work or whatever, potentially it's not going to be the right choice for you, because if there's wind, great, you can sail. If there's not much wind, then you just sail a little bit slower. If there's no wind, you put the genoa up and do a tiny little bit of motor sailoring. It's just we sail as much as we can. That is our main form of propulsion, and the electric motor is really for maneuvering and getting us out of the tight spot. And it's just going back to those roots of, I guess, more traditional sailing, isn't it?
It is. It's like a fusion of the past and the future, you know, like, yeah, we only have 20 miles range at the moment. We're going to double our battery bank this year, and that will give us more. So it's how you use those miles. And, you know, people sailed without mechanical propulsion for thousands of years very successfully. And now we have all the benefits of modern weather forecasting, modern navigation. So it's, you know, you've got to get the best of both worlds, I think, really.
Yeah, exactly. That's really well said, that it's kind of a fusion between the modern and the past, because that kind of is it. And at least, you know, I have heard Sailing Uma say that at least you learn to be a really good sailor if you have to,
Sure.
you know, maneuver the boat in very light winds, or maybe, you know, sail to a marina or to an anchorage or something. So there's that aspect as well. But yeah, it probably does take quite a bit of commitment to really see the value. And then I'm picturing, like, if someone is environmentally conscious and really focused on sustainable lifestyle, they can, you know, forgive some of the shortcomings. But if somebody just happened to buy an electric boat without any sort of deeper meaning to it, it might become a frustration for them, and the range anxiety might get to them.
And they can always just add a generator. And I would argue that is still better than a diesel engine, because at least then you have several forms of energy, several sources of energy. And you have the choice whether to use it or not. So, you know, if you are on a schedule, cool, start the DC generator, and it's basically a diesel electric then. Yeah, and there's no point as well in sacking off a completely good diesel engine. If a boat's got a good diesel engine, doesn't need replacing, it doesn't make sense to go electric at that point, because that's wasteful in itself. So it becomes a bit paradoxical at that point, I think.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But at the same time, there's, you know, every so often, because I, you know, browse the yacht world like on a daily basis, every so often there is a boat that is like, you know, it's a great boat, but the engine just shut. Like, you'll have to rebuild it or remove it. Then it's like, well, maybe.
Perfect opportunity. Yeah, that is the perfect opportunity. And the boat's often a bit cheaper as a result of that as well. So helps mitigate the cost.
Well, while we're on the topic of sort of sustainable living and all that, and you mentioned you are environmentally conscious, I'm curious, what other ways does this show in your life apart from being electric on your sailboat? Is there anything else on your sailboat or on your lifestyle that you sort of focus on?
Yeah, we try and minimize our impact as far as is practical generally. And I think that's a really important way of putting it. It is as far as practical, you know. There's just some things you can't avoid now, like buying salad in a supermarket is going to be in plastic.
And until that changes, and that needs to come from supermarkets and consumers having a demand for that. Yeah. But that's going to take time. I think the little wins that we do is everything on board is all biodegradable, marine safe. We don't use any kind of chemical that can mitigate its way into the ocean in any way. And we're very conscious of that.
And do you find that there are a lot of, or at least sort of decent selection, sustainable, say, cleaning products or whatever other products you need on your boat?
There's more and more. Yeah, there's more and more appearing. What's the one we have at the moment? Ocean Saver?
Oh, yeah, Ocean Saver, yeah.
Yeah, so that's just one. There's loads out there, but yeah, that's, you know, one we have on board at the moment. And I think that, yeah, that's a really easy change to make on board, really, that. Other things we do, you know, try and buy plastic free where possible. There's limited choices we have as consumers, though. We can only really do what we can in line with what exists out there, you know. So most of it revolves around what we put down the drain on the boat, to be honest with you, and what we eat as well. You know, yeah, big choices we can make with our food, environmentally, stuff like that. But that's about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's already a lot, especially, you know, any kind of food choices. But yeah, I share your frustration regarding the plastics, because I'm vegan, so I eat a lot of vegetables, and, you know, all that kind of produce, and so much of it is wrapped in plastic. It just drives me crazy. And then maybe if it's the organic version, is not wrapped in plastic, but it's like 3 times the cost. So yeah, there's hopefully one day we'll get to a different state of affairs with that stuff.
I think it's slowly changing. We're seeing in the UK more and more like plastic free shops popping up everywhere. Which is a really good sign.
With like refill stations, you know, so you can take like your container and you fill it with rice and, you know, pasta or whatever. There's loads of those now. Change is happening slowly. Yeah, it's getting there.
So obviously you have a bit of knowledge about all things electric. So if someone is interested in learning more about maybe switching to electric, or just interested in exploring the possibility, would you have any sort of resources to recommend, whether it's books or websites or companies or Instagram accounts or whatever, where people could go get inspired?
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, what were the main things we looked at? YouTube was massive. Obviously, I mentioned Sailing Uma already. There's lots of other electric sailors out there as well doing YouTube. That was a big influence for us, wasn't there? In terms of what other sources of info did we look at? Books-wise, I mean, there's not much on electric propulsion books-wise, I think, because it's so new. But, of course, marine electrics and the theory behind it still applies, and there's lots of books out there on that. So in terms of learning about marine electronics in general, Nigel Calder's book was really helpful for us, not just during the electric conversion, but in just boat ownership anyway. Yeah, that was great. I think there'll probably be more things in future. Websites, you were researching some stuff, weren't you? Was there any websites that sprung to mind?
It was kind of a bit of a black hole, to be honest.
Plug boats is quite good, isn't it? There's lots of info on plug boats. You really had to pick around for information, and bits from here, bits from there, bits from another place, whereas because it is still so new, there's not loads of information on it, and it is an experiment. Yeah, there is a portal, and it's slightly a bit biased because we're heavily involved in it, but it's called sailelectric.com. So that will be a portal for electric propulsion and energy on boats in general. It's developing all the time, so that's coming. But I think you're right with sifting through information, and because there's a lot, everyone you speak to in boating is an expert, right? So and there's a lot of people that we've spoken to about electric since we've done the conversion, and they've said, "Oh, it will never work. Oh, that will never work." And we're like, "Well, we've proved it works, mate." So we've had some interesting conversations.
Oh, I can imagine.
I think electric cars are becoming more frequent. I think with prices of diesel and stuff as well, we're now looking more and more at
diesel's astronomical at the moment in the UK. Crazy. Yeah, we're really smug. It's terrible.
Yeah, the only thing we have diesel on is for our diesel heater, because at the moment there's no alternative. You need a heater in the UK, or else it just gets bloody miserable.
Yeah, fair enough. And let's talk about that, living on a boat in the UK, because obviously, it feels like a great place to do that in terms of, thinking of someone coming from Canada. It's like, oh, well, I could go to the UK, they speak English. The weather isn't too bad. Again, coming from Canada, UK weather seems totally fine when it's not -20 or -30 in the winter. But I understand that you were recently sort of kindly told to leave a marina that you had been living aboard previously, along with some other liveaboard cruisers. So I'd love to hear more about sort of maybe the general attitude towards liveaboard sailors. Is it improving, or is it doing the opposite?
I'd say it wasn't improving. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we've only lived on board, like we said, 2.5 years. In that time, we've been asked to leave 2 marinas.
Well, you haven't been asked to leave.
Not personally. They've just
made it very apparent that liveaboards are not particularly welcome.
Yeah, it is quite a hostile environment sometimes. Marinas in the UK and liveaboards. There's a few that openly accept liveaboards and welcome them, and I think that's lovely. But the general consensus at the moment is that living aboard isn't allowed for whatever reason. Yeah, it's quite challenging. And they take a similar approach to people who live in vans or buses, and they have done for decades. That's the issue, really. I think it's indicative of a bigger attitude towards alternative living.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I'm definitely seeing the very same thing in Canada. Like, it's all fine if you have a boat, as long as you also have a house somewhere else. Or it's fine if you have a van, as long as you also have a house somewhere. And the same with tiny houses. They're not exactly legal in Canada. I know in some countries they are, and because I looked into this before moving to sailboats, and it's not really a doable thing. And it's really frustrating because, I would love to have a house and 2 cars and a boat and a van, but I think my options are limited to one of those. So that is definitely frustrating here in Canada as well. And so you obviously then left a marina recently, and now you're off-grid somewhere in southern England. How is that going? Do you find there's a lot of places to choose from now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're in Falmouth at the moment, and I reckon we've explored a fraction of this area alone. There's plenty of places to hide from bad weather, plenty of places to explore. Yeah, since we left the marina, I mean, we were intending to leave the marina anyway. That's the thing. It was part of our plan.
But when someone tells you you've got to, and it's like, well, what if I want to stay?
Yeah, I don't want to now. Yeah, we'd like to have the choice. We didn't have the choice, but it was in line with our plans anyway, so it was quite lucky for us. But there was lots of other people in the marina who don't have the choice. They choose to live in a marina and their boats aren't ready for off-grid, maybe. So yeah, they've found it really challenging.
And what they've done, instead of it being like you can't stay in, they're allowing liveaboards to stay there, but they won't give them the annual rate, so you have to pay visitor, which is about double the price per month.
Yeah, it's crazy expensive.
Which is insane.
So they've just outpriced a lot of people. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that. Do you think it is a financial reason for the marinas to push for this? Because obviously, if they can rent out a slip on a daily or weekly basis, it's more expensive. Or do you think it's facilities? For example, in Canada, it's the part of the problem is that, especially in the West Coast, there's quite a large homeless population, and there are or have been a lot of derelict boats. So those very few sort of bad apples, if you will, who just bought a boat and then left it to rot in the middle of a channel or something, those give a really bad reputation to everybody. And I don't know if that's in the UK. So that's what I'm trying to get to. Like, what do you think is driving this sort of no liveaboards here kind of thing?
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. It's probably very similar here. Yeah, we were told by the marina that it was basically the impact on facilities and the usage of facilities and things like that. But we think it was probably actually a combination of other things, and that was just their excuse. And the reason on the surface that they gave wasn't the main reason. And it is, there are boats in marinas that are hanging, they are rotting, like you said. And I think it's probably, as you said, a few bad apples that spoil it for the rest of us, but it's still a minority. And, if you keep your boat really tidy and you don't leave the facilities in a mess, then what's the problem, And
as well, it's a community. Like, we knew loads of people that lived on board in the marina. And when we had some huge storms come through, not the latest ones, I think it was Boxing Day last year, it was like 80 knots. Oh, it was mad. And it was all the liveaboards who were out, and they were checking fenders and warps, because it was like
middle of the night,
2:00 in the morning, and it kicked off, and they've only got one night team in. People, we were taking fenders of our own boat because we were sorted, and then putting them on other people's boats to make sure that they don't get damaged. Taking
down flogging head sails, because the one night watchman's not going to be able to do that by himself, So that it was I think a useful community to have around. Definitely has its pros and cons.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I would imagine it actually adds a little bit of security if you have other people in a marina, in terms of being like, I don't know, boat fires or something that might happen when the owner is not there on someone else's boat. They get loose or whatever. If there are people who live there and are there all the time, they know how things are supposed to look on other people's boats that they see every day as well. So yeah, it's a really shame. I haven't come across that many destinations that are like, or that many people that I've talked to who are like, yeah, we have a great liveaboard situation. So far, Australia and Mexico, I'd be like, no problem. It's all good. So
we should aim there.
two places to add to our long list of places to sail, for sure, yeah.
Oh, it's never ending.
I think it adds to the challenge of it in the UK. And you were saying about, living off-grid and continuously cruising, as it were. Pretty easy place to do it when it's not winter. And I would imagine it's even more so in Canada where you are. But living on a boat in winter is really hard here, And
I'd happily just hibernate from November through to February. Just place it down, just sleep for the whole time.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? This is why we need to sail somewhere sunnier.
Too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what kind of heating setup you have? You must have. You mentioned a heater before because it's a must. So what do you have?
We've just got one of the Chinese diesel heaters. We had some old Urbush batches lying around, didn't we? That we were going to Frankenstein into one thing, but parts were really expensive for them. And it's not the way it should be, but it was easier just to buy a new one cheap from China. And I don't like it, but it was really convenient. And it's done us proud. It's really warm, very reliable, and it still works, So that's, what more could you want?
Exactly. Well, if it heats up the boat, and maybe this is another benefit of having a little bit of smaller boat versus like a 45-foot boat, that even a smaller heater, it will work.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. It's a really simple setup because the boat originally didn't have any sort of heating, so it's something that we have to plumb in. When we were talking about it'd be nice for the vents to come out underneath the saloon chairs and stuff, and then practicality of doing that, it just would have torn the whole boat
We've got
apart.
2 vents. We've got a vent pointing into our aft cabin and a vent pointing into the saloon, and that's it. and it's okay for us. We plan to be somewhere where we don't need a heater eventually. Like, that would be nice. And obviously we're trying to sail fossil fuel free as well. So the less fuel we burn for heating, the better, as far as we're concerned. I mean, we've got a lot of mates who have log burners on their boats, and they're gorgeous, and the heat they give off is so nice. And we were considering one of those because they're just lush. There's nowhere to put it on this boat, really.
We'd have to sacrifice quite a lot to fit one in.
And considering we're planning on sailing to places where we don't need heating, it was a big change we didn't want to make. But that's a really good option as well. And of course, wood is a renewable resource if it's managed sustainably and ethically, so potentially better than burning diesel. I don't know. Hard to say, isn't it?
Pros and cons of everything. It's a compromise.
It is a compromise, isn't it?
Yeah, it is for sure. And actually here in Canada, there are, I'd say, an increasing number of marinas who don't want wood burning stoves because of the soot that it gives out. So they don't necessarily love that idea. But have you found any or come across any challenges with insurance and heating? Or have you looked into that? Because I know, again, having looked into a little bit in Canada, open fire, those beautiful fireplaces they'd want to have, big no if it's not already on the boat.
Yeah. I would say probably the same. When we're looking at heating options, we didn't actually inquire about insurance, but we know friends who have recently installed a cubic mini from Canada. Obviously, somewhere that cold is probably going to make pretty decent stoves, you'd think. So
100%.
They've installed one of those, and I know they've had to be very careful about insurance. And yeah, Ray and Dave, our friends, are spot on with how they do a lot of stuff, aren't they? They research it very, very well, and then they do it once, they do it properly, and they've done a great job of the stove install. But I do know they looked into it very carefully, insurance-wise. So
I don't know what the outcome was, but yeah, I know that they followed a set procedure, so I presume they got covered.
It's like anything else. It's like lithium batteries, minefield with insurance. So people think they're a drop-in replacement, they're not. And you have to look at that very carefully. There's not many companies that will insure lithium, so got to do your research on it.
I had no idea about that. What's the problem with lithium? Are they viewed as some sort of a hazard, or? Yeah,
I mean, essentially, people are quite, I think, paranoid about lithium because it's potential to get very hot very quickly if anything goes wrong. And weirdly, I think I've seen more issues with lead acid batteries than I have lithium, because the risk exists and it's managed properly. You very rarely get problems with it. But with lead acid, I think people get complacent, and let's not forget that it gives off hydrogen, so and acid, we've heard some pretty scary things that have happened with lead acid batteries as well. So I think there's risk with anything. If you install anything badly, it's probably going to go wrong. But yeah, lithium insurance wise, I mean, we've all seen Teslas on fire, and how difficult Tesla cars are to put out when they're on fire. So yeah, there's certainly some attention about that at the moment. I think, like I said, risk exists and it's managed properly. It's not an issue, really.
I think that's why going for decent batteries, a well-known brand, is always a good thing to do.
Oh, especially for propulsion, right?
Yeah, because with propulsion, you need it to be reliable. You need it to have been tested rigorously. So we swear it's an investment to get really good batteries, because there are some cheaper ones out there. But it's like
we were thinking about DIYing them as well. DIY lithium is an option, but it depends what cells you use, and yeah, I'm not sure if that would be insurable. Yeah, I'm not sure if it would be insurable. So yeah, it's an odd one.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to consider, and probably something, if you're not electronically minded, maybe consider getting some help when you're installing everything, just to make sure that it is all done properly. And, even as a learning experience for oneself. So, because I know, just watching YouTube, there's a lot of different setups out there.
Yeah, we definitely see a wide range of installs from scary to excellent. Yeah, it's been interesting to look at.
Yeah, exactly. So you guys, you're off grid right now. You're still working. So if you don't mind sharing, what do you do for a living, and how's that going working on an off grid boat?
So I'm a buyer for a company called Wärtsilä, who's a Finnish company, and they supply marine systems across the world. So they mainly to the cruise industry, oil riggers.
Yeah, which, given our environmental
I know.
focus, maybe not the most ethical job choice, but it is remote, and they do look after you, don't they?
They're amazing. To be fair, I've been treated really well. So I've been working with them for about a year. Before that, I was working for Lush Cosmetics as a buyer. So everything that I do is just internet-based, on a laptop, as long as I've got signal, and I can call suppliers as and when I need to. It works really well for us. Yeah, and like I said, I normally do pretty early hours as well. So if I start at 6, I finish at 3, which then in the summer in the UK means you get a good chunk of sunlight hours after. So that works really well. Whereas, and you're quite flexible with your working hours. So if we do need to move or something, quite often George is there sailing and I'll just carry on working. Be like, shout if you need me. Or if you hear like the boom go across, I'll be like, oh, do you need a hand?
I just have to shout down when we're tacking so that she can switch sides with her laptop, and that works okay.
That's fantastic. So yeah, it's kind of like a more traditional job, which is really interesting to hear that it is working, because that's sort of my plan as well. Have a more, a traditional job in the sense that, not being self-employed, but having an employer and still trying to do the cruising. So I'm so glad to hear that actually works.
Yeah, and I think it's just important that if anyone was to sort of approach your employer about being a bit more remote, just get them on board with it. Like my boss, she loves our lifestyle and she's really intrigued by it, but it means that I have that degree of flexibility that I can be like, I just need to have 2 hours, we can move the boat or do something. And she's like, cool, just make up your hours as and when you need. So it's just having that communication. I'm quite lucky. I think coronavirus as well has, in some ways, people have benefited from it because you've had to work from home. And if you've already proved the concept that you can work from home, then that's your case, isn't it, really?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's opened a lot of people's eyes into a lot of different jobs that used to be traditionally more office-based. So I think that is definitely a bit of a silver lining in all of that. But have you found anything that is challenging in terms of working from a boat for somewhat set hours? You said, flexibility is somewhat required, but have you run into any issues with like internet connection or anything like that?
Yes. So what we tend to do if we go to like a new area, we'll explore it at the weekend where we don't have to be as focused on having signal. And then if we like a place and we have signal, we're like, okay, note to self, put this in the book of like, this is a good spot. And there's others places like we're in the Scillies last year and it had the most beautiful beach and it had absolutely no signal. So it's like, weekend spot. That's cool. That's fine. We've discovered that. Which is quite nice in a way.
That's our digital detox anchorage. Now,
Yeah.
if we anchor there, no one can reach us. And that's quite nice. But it has to be on a weekend.
Yeah.
So before we sail to a new place, we look at the map from the mobile phone company like provider, the coverage map. We look at that to see where there's likely to be good signal. And as Sin said, we scope it out on the weekend. And if it is good signal, then we know we can work there.
And I think as well, like, so on my mobile contract, I've got All You Can Eat data, and that's with one company. George has got the same on a different company. And then we've got like a little MiFi dongle box, which again is on another company. And we've gone for like the 3 biggest providers in the UK. So chances are, wherever we are, one of those 3 will have signal. It's very rare that we don't have signal in places.
Yeah, that's a really good idea to have sort of all those providers covered. That makes sense. And of course, in the UK, the distances are fairly short. If you do need to go somewhere, just keep going along the coast. It's not that remote. It's not like I have to go to a different island that will take you a day and a half to get to or anything like that. So that's really cool. And I like that idea of having a little weekend getaway spot where there is no internet and no connectivity, just to be able to relax and actually enjoy the cruising life, right?
Yeah, I think one of the most frustrating things about living and working remotely is when it's really lovely sunshine. I don't want to be sat in front of a computer. I'm just there in a lovely location, like looking out, like, is it finished work yet? Can I go out and play?
Yeah, that was always the issue when we worked in offices, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very tempting to go for a swim sometimes, Yeah, easy to get distracted, isn't it?
Yeah, fair enough. And I imagine that would only get worse if you, eventually move on to, say, the Mediterranean or somewhere to a different country where it's all new and exciting. It's like, well, let me just sit down for 8 hours and do some work.
Yeah.
we have to be very disciplined.
Very.
That's true. That's a good quality to have, and probably something that is required when you are doing what you're doing. And obviously, so you have, a couple of years, getting all the 3 years of experience of owning a boat and living on a board. So I'm wondering whether you would have any tips for anyone who is, not quite there yet, so about to become a liveaboard sailor or about to start boat shopping or anything. Any tips on transitioning into the lifestyle?
Don't buy unnecessary things. Like, it's easy when you have a house and a flat to have space and fill it. That's the one thing we were really conscious of, like, because we did seasons and we had very little stuff, to be fair, just like a bag of things. And we were like, right, when we move back, let's just get the essentials and don't buy any extra things, because that's just things you're just going to have to get rid of. We still had to scale down, mainly on the toys, like all the windsurf gear and stuff.
Yeah.
We had to scale that down because it's just, we couldn't have it all.
Yeah, you can't keep all the windsurf kit we had on the boat, which is silly. But we needed something to keep us going while we were saving. You know, we needed something to entertain us and keep us focused. And windsurfing was our thing, wasn't it, really? We still have some kit on board, but we can't have the 6 boards we used to have. Definitely not. Yeah, minimalism is a big tip, I reckon.
It's freeing as well, isn't it? Like, you don't...
We had a very empty flat.
We did. People come around and be like, oh, apart from the plants, loads of plants.
Lots of plants.
I think you just described my apartment. I have a lot of plants, but I've kind of known since we lived here for the last couple of years that, and we don't own this, so we're just renting. It's like, well, we're not going to buy like a whole ton of stuff, just the necessities. And, we're already thinking ahead, like, am I buying this? Is this going to be on the boat? No, well, I shouldn't buy it.
Yeah, and it's a good thing to do to get into that mentality. So then when you do move aboard, you're like, oh, it's not as big a deal.
Yeah, space is a big challenge. So yeah, preparing for that.
Yeah, I think it's like also accepting when we first moved on the boat, we like really thought where we were going to put things to make it efficient and easy to live on board. And then like a few weeks later, just being like, this just does not work, and just moving it all around. And we're still doing it now, aren't we?
It takes a while for everything to find its place and where it works best. And everyone has their own way of doing it. And until you get on the boat, there's no way of knowing what that will be, I reckon.
Yeah, fair enough. Those are really good points. So start leading towards minimalism even while you're still in the house. So that's great. And well, thank you for sharing all this experience and stories with me. And I am wondering, where would you direct people to go follow you guys online?
Instagram, probably the best place, eh?
Yeah.
We haven't strayed into YouTube territory yet, so our Instagram is our most active thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
We are Electric Vagabonds on Instagram.
And there you have it. Go check these guys out on Instagram for some more electric sailing adventures. Next week, we are going to have a chat about accidents and injuries and how to prepare for medical emergencies at sea. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the episode. As always, thank you for listening. If you want to come say hi online, you can find me as Liveaboard Sailing Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. I'll see you there. Bye for now.